Hello and welcome to episode number 6 of Goalie Talk with Pontus.
And Chris.
And from today and onward, Chris is going to be helping us with our English episodes. How do you feel, Chris?
I am super excited and quite nervous about jumping in, but yeah, really looking forward to it. And being nervous always comes with being excited about something new. So looking forward to getting stuck in.
Yeah, nervousness is actually a lot of the times a good thing. They say it's even a good thing when driving.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, it keeps you on your toes, right? And your go, Sarah Hjorting,
Mm?
forgive my pronunciation.
Yeah.
She mentioned that she would always drum up her anxiety, like her nervousness, right? And then kind of, get herself absolutely psyched for the game. So yeah, definitely a good thing.
And I want to let you all know a little bit about how this podcast is going to run from now on concerning the English episodes. So I have been receiving questions, mostly through Instagram, where people are asking, will this episode be in English? When is the next episode in English? And the thing is, this is and has always been planned to be a completely Swedish podcast, which is due to the fact that me and Joel are from Sweden. It's a little bit more effort for us to do it in English, and most of the guests that we have easy access to, are from Sweden. So in order for us to be able to be spontaneous and plan stuff extra well, most episodes will be in Swedish. But we noticed, of course, that a lot of people from outside of Sweden are interested in a Floorball Goalie podcast. So I think it's maybe 2 weeks back, maybe more, that we realized, all right, let's do at least 2 English episodes a month. However, Joel doesn't have as much access to free time to do podcast as I do, seeing as he has a 6 or 7 month old son whom he has to tend to. He also has full-time work, even in these times. And we made a promise when we started this podcast to not let it take over completely time-wise just yet. So to kind of take some load off of Joel and give me some assistance with this secondary language, we thought of Chris, whom we've known for a couple of years. Chris is a good bloke. He's a funny guy, and he speaks the language natively. So we thought it would be a perfectly good fit to help us out in the podcast. And I think it's going to be a great addition. I hope you're all as excited as we are to have him on. So we're going to start off with something we are going to call the water cooler segment. So the water cooler segment is basically talking about topics that you would talk to your coworkers or fellow students about in the hallway while hanging out at the water cooler. I don't know if water coolers are still a thing though. Are they?
I don't know. No, not really. Actually, probably not. Certainly not as common. But I don't know. I haven't had like an office kind of, like, the typical image in my head is like an office building with multiple water coolers around, and I haven't really had a job like that in a long time. So it's
Yeah, I think the metaphor still flies, I think.
yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you say it, yeah, I think everyone will hopefully know water cooler conversation.
Yeah.
So shooting the breeze is a good English one.
Shooting the breeze.
Shooting the breeze.
Oh, on the topic of English, because when you say English, I think of UK. Is that what you meant? Or just the
Oh,
English language
no,
at
it's
all?
just English language.
Right.
I imagine that New Zealand English is very, very similar to UK English, to British English, but we have definitely like incorporated a lot more American English and American culturalisms in the last 10, 20 years. It's kind of started to shift. But New Zealand was a British colony until not that long ago, like in 100 years maybe. So we're still very British influenced.
Yeah, and especially to Swedish ears, your accent would easily be confused with both English and Australian. But I have actually learned to pick up on New Zealand twang.
Oh yeah, that's good. You've met a couple of us now, right?
Yeah, I've met a couple of you.
Mm-hmm.
You explained it, and then Rachel explained it.
Mm,
Rachel Birchinger, so a goalie that
yes.
was at Line Save Goalie Camp this Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, and I also heard because me and Chris play some online games together, so I've heard it casually there as well. So the best example I have is that But now, however, when I'm gonna just about to say it, I don't know who of you says what, but one of you says six and one of you says sex.
uh, 6 is not the number for us.
Right.
We say 6. I don't know how that sounds to everybody else though, because to me that's the number. That's the problem with your own dialect, right? You say
Yeah.
the same thing, and everyone's like, "Oh, that sounds like this," and you're like, "No, it's this other word."
Yeah. So you're the
It's
ones that say it more like sex,
right.
right? Is it?
We I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we're just the dirty-minded ones.
No. So I don't even mean to make it sound like that. I think I do
Yeah.
unintentionally because I can't mimic it. But so I would say it's six. I would
That
more
sound
clearly
that
say
when you
six.
say it like that, it sounds very like proper English accent, like proper British accent,
Yeah.
sort of.
Okay.
So kind of like the stereotype I'm thinking of is like the kind of the upper class aristocracy kind of accent, like see it in movies a lot, and then you never meet anybody with an accent like that.
You got that much out of me saying the word six?
Yeah, you enunciated very, very clearly.
Well,
That was what popped into my head when you said it. So maybe I'm over describing a 3-letter word.
well, I am watching Top Gear right now.
Hmm.
That has to be one of my favorite shows of all time, and I've just been starting. I'm starting it over, so I'm watching way back from season 1,
Right, right.
and just the English accent and their choice of words, so entertaining to listen to. So like they were
Yeah.
going through on bicycles through London,
Hmm.
and instead of saying this is dangerous, one said this is great peril. And to me, that it's so funny that they choose to say
Yeah.
peril instead of danger.
I always feel like it would be hilarious to just start like randomly reintroducing words like that, because it's the kind of thing that it's like old English. Everybody will know what you mean if you say this is great peril,
Mm,
but everyone will kind of be like, "Oh, he's a bit odd, isn't he?" Like. But I always think it would be hilarious to just randomly introduce it and just like everything is all old English all the time,
right.
and just see how many people react, because English speakers would be like, "That's pretty weird," and then other people like
Would be
other
confused.
languages I find, yeah, about other languages I find they're also like, if you translate it like verbatim, so like word for word, it often comes out to be the old English equivalent of stuff,
Mm,
which is actually really interesting, because then you're like, yeah, actually I can kind of see how it would mean that. It's not like totally random, and it's not like a weird translation of something, or like,
yeah.
Sweden has this saying which means the same as that. It's actually like it's the same thing, but it's just using kind of slightly older language, like out of date language for English speakers.
Yeah, and probably more accurate as well. More like peril would be
Yeah.
the original,
Yeah, a lot more
I
explicit. I think
guess.
English as a language has got more generic
Yeah,
and a lot more
slangy.
casual, slangy. Yeah, you can use the word thing for just about everything. It's great.
When we were watching Harry Potter the other week,
Mhm.
I casually noted to my girlfriend that the road that Harry Potter's Muggle family lives on is called Little Whinging.
Mm.
So I was like, the name of their road means to whine, to cry, to complain.
Yeah.
She was like, why do you know that? I was like, I don't know. I've heard people say stop whinging.
Yeah. I said that to somebody the other day in a game.
See? So you kind of already are using these words.
Yeah, that's true.
And I wanted to bring us because I'm watching the season finale of season 1 Top Gear right now,
Mhm. Right, right.
and they are trying to decide the fastest religion.
The fastest religion.
Yeah, so they get ministers in from all types of religions, so the Church of England, Buddhism,
Mm-mm.
Judaism, all of these things, and then they have a druid,
A druid.
a druid from, I don't even remember all of his titles. He had so many titles, but he genuinely shows up in sort of a crusader outfit, but not for combat, just
Mm.
with a crusader cross and a sword, like a real proper long sword. And he like seriously claims his name to be Arthur Pendragon,
Oh,
so King
as you
Arthur.
do. Yeah.
So he's and he goes like King Arthur, the fictional character, and he just goes, "I'm not fictional, and neither is my sword." and he pulls out a sword. Like, what?
Okay. I'm guessing he didn't win fastest then if he was carrying around a sword for the whole challenge.
No, he had to put it away, but the Rastafarian won because he was a casual racer.
Ah,
I just thought it was worth mentioning that there is somehow, if you live in the UK, you can actually be a druid and like have that as your religion, your faith, which I thought was pretty
yeah.
interesting. And you can walk around with
Yeah.
swords, apparently.
Well, speaking of claiming random religions, or it's probably not random for them, but in New Zealand they had to add Jedi as an official option in the census, I believe, because so many people were putting it down because they would just tick other and then write Jedi.
Really?
And yeah, and so they actually had to add it because there were too many people doing it. So it's one of those like starts off as a stupid joke, but then people were actually putting it. And it's
That is fantastic. How many people live in New Zealand?
we just crossed the 5 million mark just recently.
Right.
So almost as the same as my suburb currently in Stockholm. Stockholm.
Exactly. I'm thinking the size of the country plays to that. So if people in the US started to put on Jedi, there would be such a small percentage.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're almost half the size of Sweden, which is in population, which is not a lot.
Right. I got to say, that makes Sweden a lot smaller than I expected, to be honest. I thought Stockholm would be taking up like 5 million at least.
Oh, no.
What?
Stockholm is like 1.2,
Oh, okay.
1 point
Right,
something.
right.
I think Gothenburg is just around the 1 million mark as well. So
Right, right.
my hometown takes 75,000 people.
Right. How many do you think Piteå has? Like
Oh,
11?
Piteå,
12?
not many at all.
There's the same 11, 12 people.
No, they
It's a great
have
place.
a population of 23K.
That is actually really big for what you see when you're there. Like 23K is a lot of people.
Yeah, but you
And it's
only
a
saw
very
the very core of the city.
this is true. I didn't go out into the suburbs. Yeah.
No, well, this is now that I see what I'm googling, this is the municipality, so it's all of it. It's not just.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So like the whole kind of Piteå region.
Mm.
Hmm.
So
Nice.
the actual city I know to be fewer.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It is a great place though. It is quite nice
It's
and tiny.
yeah. The
Nice.
only thing though is that they have a paper factory that
Yes.
makes the place stink on weekends.
Yeah, that was kind of surprise because there's a couple, isn't there? Like there's one kind of across the water, and then there's one around the corner, like when you first enter. And are they all paper factories, or are they
Mm.
various papery things?
I don't
don't
know
know.
the exact extent of
Yeah, you can.
their business, but they have a huge like the factory area, the industrial area is huge. So there's several factories in one large area.
Ah, okay.
That's the
Right.
only drawback I think of PTO, and there's not much
Mm.
happening in these small towns.
Yeah, for sure. Which actually makes it a really nice holiday destination because we kind of went and didn't really know what to expect because we were there for your Målvaktsfokus camp,
Mm.
and we'll be again this year. But we kind of got there and we did everything on the first day. We kind of walked around and saw everything, and that was kind of it. And we were like, "What do we do?" And so we went and just relaxed in a cafe and ate good food and drank coffee. And it was like, "Hey, I haven't done this in years. Like this is really nice."
Yeah, that's what you can
So,
do. You can also go to the Pete Havsbad. So bathhouse. It's not called a bathhouse, really. It's an adventure kind of. You can go in there and you can go on water rides and swim around, and you can go swim in the ocean.
ah,
And
oh, like
it's a
a water
hotel.
park.
It's kind of a. It's kind of like the water park is actually the
Mm.
ocean,
Ah, okay.
and then you have
Interesting.
like inside the hotel, the building, you have water rides inside
Right,
kind of
right, right.
thing. And then in the summers they have live shows. They have a great camping site. So it's kind of
Mm.
it's called Adventure Bath. Äventyrsbad.
Adventure.
There's a better translation. I just don't have it.
Right, right.
So Chris, do you want to tell people what we're gonna be doing today?
Yes. So today I'm going to be interviewing Pontus to learn a bit more about his path to becoming a goalie coach, and his experiences with his goalkeepers, particularly when he first started coaching in SSL, and then hit him with some questions about goalie training to finish up.
This is actually quite exciting because I don't know these questions beforehand. And I haven't been interviewed in a while. And this is the point as well, that Chris is going to be the one conducting the interviews and running goalie talk is the plan. And then I will be kind of the assistant and he will be in charge. So he will be conducting the interviews and doing the questions, and I will be there to kind of support him. So we thought this would be a nice introductory episode. And again, I don't think I've done many interviews in English. So hopefully a lot of the things that we bring up here will be new. Hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. Well, speaking of interviews in English, if our listeners have people they would like to hear from, put it in the comments and we will see what we can do. There's no harm in asking, right? So
Definitely, absolutely hit us up with who you want, who you would like us to interview. And if I didn't say it at the start, I'll say it now as well. Interviews with Swedish people will always be in Swedish. So some of you have already heard or seen that we've done an interview with Victor Klintsten from Storvreta and the Swedish national team. Interviews of that kind will be in Swedish. So if anyone who's bilingual would like to help us with subtitles, you're more than welcome to head us up as well. But those types of interviews with Swedish people will unfortunately be in Swedish.
Alrighty. So my first question is, I think most people probably listening at the moment know your kind of your vague path to where you are at the moment in terms of goalie coaching. So you were a goalie yourself for a few years. You had an injury and you shifted to goalie coaching, and then you now ended up coaching with Pixbo. So I kind of thought it might be fun to fill in some of the blanks. And just get a bit more of a clear picture on your path and just and what it was like as well when you first started working with Pixbo. So the first question is, when you first had to finish playing, rather you had to end because of your injury, what kind of made you decide to jump over to coaching, and like how long did it take to kind of come to that decision? Because I can imagine it's not an easy thing to do with a career-ending injury, especially as young as you were. So it probably wasn't instant. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Right. So the interesting thing is, I started when I was 14 and I was kind of coerced into starting. Actually, so we played a cup in school and I was forced to play goalie pretty much. And I think I only agreed because it was after school hours in the school gym, we played around midnight.
Oh,
so it was kind of a fun thing to do. And then it turned out I did okay. And then I was convinced rather than coerced to come and try a practice. Turned out I was decent enough to start practicing. And then only 3 years later, when I was 17, I had already switched to coaching.
Ah, you'd already switched by the time you were 17. So you switched before your injury, or?
Yeah, there was definitely a crossover period because there was no singular point of injury. So
right, okay.
I did do a lot of different sports, which has been good, I believe, for my body in general. But just the way that it works, sitting on your knees, took its toll on me because I played my first season without, as far as I can remember, knee pads.
Oof.
Because when you're 14, you're kind of indestructible. Nothing hurts, and it was a new sport, so nobody told me to put anything on other than the goalie pants that I was offered.
Yeah.
So I played with them, and then let's say it was half a year or a year, I wouldn't know. I was somehow came over knee pads. I was like, oh, I see.
Right. Yeah.
So my knees kind of slowly declined. And then for my last year of playing, my second to last year of playing, me and two friends were offered the chance to coach a young girls team in our club. So we were 16 at the point.
Yeah.
These girls were 11, 12, 13. So they were not that much younger than we were.
Yeah, right.
And all of us had, it was the first time coaching. But I actually did know from the first practice we had that I was like, I want to do this. I actually told my two friends, because we only had one practice that first week. I remember distinctly. I was like, I want it to be next week already now, like after the practice. I thought it was too much fun. And both of them were like, they still wanted just to be players, and they just did it for fun. They were like, no, I don't know. But me, I was like looking forward to it all day when I was going to get to do my second practice.
Nice.
So I loved it straight away. And then I did we coached them and played that season. So did both. And then after that season, my knees were poor. So at times they would lock up, and they still do. If I put my knee to a certain angle and put pressure on it, it kind of wants to lock up, and it hurts, and I have to kick my leg out, and it cracks, and it hurts really badly. So I didn't want to take the risk, like to end up in that stance. So I did 1 year of coaching after I quit playing, and then I had to go and do military basic training. So I got a 1 year hiatus.
Right.
Yeah, and that's basically how it started. I couldn't do any coaching in the military, so
of course,
I was just waiting and wanting to get out of the military, not because I didn't like it, but because I really wanted to continue coaching, but it wasn't really an option then.
Yeah, for sure. So when you came back from that and you started coaching again, what age groups did you pick up? Was it like you kind of picked up where you'd left off, or?
Right. So at that time, I had to move town. I had to move from. All right. Let's see if I'm gonna get this right. No. So I moved back after the military training to my hometown, and worked different jobs. I was a bartender. I was working in a gas station, as a salesperson. I did some maintenance work. Like, I was all over the place for 1 year. And I'm pretty sure I coached that year too. I definitely coached in my original club then for that year too. But then my old lieutenant called me up and said, I'm ringing up the people from your platoon who finished their basic training in 2010. And we're doing interviews for these jobs in the military, in the army. Are you interested? And I, of course, said yes, because I was working 10 to 20 hours a week at a bar, which really wasn't my thing. And also it was no steady income. So I went and did that. And then I commuted between the two places, called Skelleftehamn, where I'm from, to Boden, which is a 2.5 hour drive.
Right.
And worked. So you worked 27-hour shifts. You could sleep on the job at night as long as there was nothing happened. And then you had a couple of days off, and then you like 2 or 3 days off, and then you worked another 27-hour shift. It's like 2-3 shifts a week.
Right.
And after that, I did that for like 8 months, and then I got offered a full-time job. So I moved there, and then I made a pretty big leap, I would say, from women's juniors to a women's senior team. And at this point, I've always been working with the goalies more than with the field players, but I was never a full-on goalie coach, because that was never an option because of the lack of coaches.
Right.
So I went there as an assistant coach to a women's Division 2 team in Boden. Did that for one season, and then the head coach, who was a captain in the Air Force, had to drop out because he what's it called when you work yourself into exhaustion?
Burnout.
Yeah, so he burned out and was forbidden from answering any phone calls or texts from anyone within the sport, because he had to take care of himself. So he was like, here you go, you are now the head coach. Actually, he didn't even say so. He just left because he had to for his health. So there I was. The club had 2 teams, a representation team and a development team in Division 2. So I was the head coach of the development team in Division 2. and try to do goalie stuff there as well. Difficult thing to do as a head coach, to care for the goalies as much as you would want to.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know Lena, right, from the camp?
Yes.
So she then became my goalie for that season.
Ah, cool.
And she was so good at the time compared to how good I was as a coach. So the first kind of exercises that I put her through with shooters, I stood there, kind of kept my cool, and was like, looked like everything was under control. And I was just thinking, holy shit, what do I say? Like, she's so good. What is the feedback here?
Yeah.
Because the leap was so obvious from the junior team that I've had to
Right.
this. She had no idea, which worked out well for me at the time. So I did a couple of seasons, I think 2 in that club, which was a big leap. And then I moved to Luleå, which is like 45 minutes from Boden, where I worked with Lena to coach my first ever boys team as a goalie coach. So I got in touch with the club and said, just got a new job. I'm going to work in the Air Force. And I said, but I will only do it if I can be exclusively a goalie coach. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, absolutely. And then I started working with boys at the age of, so let's say they were 12 to 16.
Right.
So men's juniors. And then that was a big leap. Because all of a sudden, the mentality of the coaches changed as well. They were, screaming at them, cursing at them.
Yeah, right.
Which was really interesting. I was terrified the first practice.
So what was the reaction from well, let's go with the coaches first. Like, what was the reaction from the coaches when you turned up and were like, hey, I want to take your goalies aside and coach them? Like, were they welcoming of it? Did they kind of notice? Did they care? Did they just kind of keep doing their own thing and then like ignored you? Like, how did that work with the other coaches?
No, it was actually super welcoming. They were super welcoming because they knew that this was a competence that they didn't have.
Right.
Or even so, an interest maybe. Even, I don't know how good I was back then, but I had a full-blown passion for it. So they were really welcoming. And when I said, when you're doing this, I want to take the goalies to do this. And like, oh, all yours, do your thing.
Yeah, right.
So they were just really accommodating.
Nice. That's really cool. And how about from the players? Like when you turned up and said to the goalies, "Hey, come over here. I want to help you guys out and coach you specifically, you guys." How did they react to that? Because that must have been like super new to them and unheard of, especially at their age.
Yeah, I think it was really unheard of for them, and it was super appreciated by them as well, just because of the fact that I was willing to give them my full attention. So suddenly they had someone who cared only about them.
Yeah.
So I think that I do remember being decent then, knowledge-wise, but just the fact that I was there sitting behind the net and only looking at you and only talking to you, that was super appreciated. And because they had never had I don't think any of them had ever had a full-time goalie coach. Any feedback would be kind of like, well, I guess I have to listen because no one has ever told me anything.
Yeah.
So I actually I had a lot of confidence at this point just because I was so rare.
Right. Yeah.
Within quotation marks, rare. So nobody could really question anything that I had to say, even though they probably should, but no one did it. So,
Yeah.
And then also just visiting Varberg goalie camp in 2014 was a huge boost. So at this point, we had also arranged Målvaktsfokus goalie camp for the first time in 2015, which was crazy. So it was such an incredible feeling and such a what do you even call it? A milestone.
Yeah.
Where me and Lena visited this goalie camp in southern Sweden, and we were like, all right, so this is how it's done. Now we see, because we had tried to make a goalie camp happen, but we started with no basis of knowledge. Like, how do you do it? How do you get people to register? How do they pay for it? How do we get the hall? How do we get the food? How do we how's the work sessions going to be? All this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So when we got that from them at the goalie camp in Varberg, they also agreed to come to my first goalie camp and help us out.
Oh, nice.
And that just made it so much easier. This was Tobias Jansson, the goalie in Varberg, who actually retired now
Right.
from the SSL, and their head coach Oskar Lundin, who is the founder of the goalie camp. And he didn't know. So the first and second goalie of the men's team with Varberg, Per Svedin and Tobias Jansson, showed up.
Right.
So with that basis of knowledge as well, I felt super confident then. And yeah, the relationships with me and the goalies were really good, because any lack of competence that I had, I made up for with, giving them attention,
Right.
listening and reflecting with them. And everyone was super accommodating.
Sweet. So moving on, skipping probably not many years at this point, because we're getting close to you're starting with SSL. If we're heading 2015, right? Would be. So how did you get from where you were up north in Luleå to sign on with Pixbo?
Right. So right before we went to the goalie camp in December of 2014, I was visiting the World Floorball Championship in Gothenburg. And I was in the VIP section, which is a really weird story as well. So a friend of my dad's, or a work colleague of my dad's, was the head of the referees of Swedish floorball at the time.
Oh, wow.
So they got to talking in a meeting, and he said, my son works as a goalie, or is a goalie coach. And then he said, your son should talk to this guy, and kind of gave him a card.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be John Liljelund, the general secretary of the IFF.
Oh, yeah.
So here I am coaching boys 14 or 12 to 16. I mean, and I got the email address to the general secretary, who runs or did run at the time a company called Goalie Base in Finland.
Right.
So he was like, your son should get in touch with this guy, because he's upset with Sweden for not trading their goalies. So he's gonna be he's gonna appreciate him getting in touch. So I did. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, hey John, this is me, yada yada yada, can I come and visit you at Goalie Base and see what's up? So he kind of said, I'm kind of busy at the moment with the WFC, can you make it down to Gothenburg for the WFC and meet me there instead? And I was like, yeah, sure. He's like, all right, head on down and I will get you a VIP ticket for the entire championship. It's like, okay.
Nice.
Yep. So I head down there and I sit in the VIP section from early morning to evening every day, watched every game that was being played.
Nice.
I started my blog, Målvaktsfokus, which really only had the purpose of updating my colleagues in Luleå, in the club. Right. I didn't have a Facebook account at the time.
Right.
So the accountant of my club, who said, we're going to pay for your train trip. I'm like, oh, cool. She said, but you have to update us on the trip. And I'm like, how do I do it? I don't have Facebook. She said, I don't care. You make it work. So I started a blog and wrote only for them, basically. Like, I'm on the train now. I'm doing this. I'm reading up on this. And I remember in December of 2014, heading down to Gothenburg, researching Patrik Åhman, because I didn't know who he was at the time.
Right.
He was only the best, or at least the most famous goalie in Sweden at the time. I had no clue. I head down there. I sit in the VIP section taking notes to my blog. And this volunteer lady asks, because she sees me coming in every day in kind of ripped jeans with a notebook. And she's like, what are you writing down? I'm like, I'm a goalie coach. I'm taking notes from my floorball goalie blog. And then this is where I slip on the next banana peel, where she says, my son went to this goalie camp with this guy, Oskar Lundin in Varberg. You should contact him if you're interested. I call him up and he says, sure, come to the goalie camp and help us coach. I was like, what? Okay, sure. And then we go down there and then they help us start up a camp in Luleå. And so yeah, during that World Cup, I have the idea of starting my company, so turning my blog to a company. I go online, I order a shirt with my name, with the company name on it. I name register the company and everything. I still have no clue how to do it or what product I'm going to sell. I just want to do it. I just want to live off it, basically.
Yeah.
pretty much all of my origin story relates back to the 2014 WFC, because there I also met the person, the club director of Pixbo.
Oh, nice.
So Kristina Landgren Karestam.
Mm-hmm.
I meet her, or actually she meets my accountant who's also there. They get to
Okay.
talking, and she says to Kristina, the head of Pixbo, says, "I'm here with the goalie coach, our goalie coach." And she says, "You have a goalie coach?" And she points me out when I'm approaching. She comes up to me. I have no clue who she is.
Yeah.
And she goes, because she talks at 100 miles an hour. And she just goes, "Hi, my name is Christina. Here's my thing. You're a goalie coach. Get in touch with me." Da, 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 and then just runs off. And I was like, what just happened? Who was she? Didn't think too much of it. I interviewed Jon Hedlund, the first goalie of the men's team in Pixbo. I interviewed Oskar Adler, who was the backup goalie at the time. I interviewed some of the Pixbo women's goalies as well for the academy.
Right.
And shortly after, somehow, I interviewed Sara Hjorting as well. I don't know how that came about.
Right.
So anyway, I now have contacts to Pixbo, which is just a completely random chance that I meet them there. And when I get back to Luleå, I kind of realized that if I want to start a company based on floorball, this isn't the place to do it, because floorball isn't that, it's not that big in northern Sweden.
Yeah.
So I just send a text, I think, to Kristina, and I say, "Hi, it's me from this and that." I think this was in like March or February or something.
Right.
So a couple months after, I was like, "Do you need a goalie coach for baseball?" She says, "Yep, come on down." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I get in touch with the office of the security guard company where I worked, because I worked in the Air Force and I was a security guard as well. So I was only working and doing floorball part-time.
Right.
I asked them, "Do you need security guards on your office in Gothenburg?" And they say yes. So I was like, "All right, cool." I get a train ticket. I book a meeting with the security guard company. And before I even get to get on the train, my dad's cousin hits him up and says, "The daughter of my friend has an apartment that she's getting rid of. And it's a secondhand kind of thing. So she has to help them get a new tenant."
Right.
So then I get a number to an available apartment all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Which in Gothenburg is super rare. You don't get apartments really.
Yeah, for sure.
So in the span of 1 week, I have a job interview, I have a house interview, and I have a living interview. And then I also have an interview with a club in under 1 week. So I go there, I meet with Pixbo, I meet with the landlords, and I meet with the company. And all of them just go, "Sure, let's go. Let's do it." So I was like, what is going on? And then like 2 weeks after that, I'm back at home. I'm packing my car, a big Volkswagen. I pack everything I own into it, and then I just drive to Gothenburg 14 straight hours, and I move to Gothenburg and I start coaching in Pixbo.
Wow.
Not the SSL, but the Pixbo.
That's a mental turnaround. Like it's actually quite interesting parallels to me moving here as well, because you were saying like everything fell into place for you, like, you know, one after the other, and it was the same for me when I started moving to, like, when we decided that we were coming to Sweden. It was like, oh, well, I know a guy who works at this company and they're in Stockholm, so let's message this. And then, oh, yep, sweet. Yep, you guys can come over and work here. And then, oh, okay, well, we're going to need a place. So we look up on the Airbnb, and then the guy's like, "What are you doing after the Airbnb's done? Like, do you want to just stay here?" Yep, all right. So we're at the place. And then, you know, I already had contacts in town. So finding a team was so easy. You just turn up and basically play if somebody asks you, which, you know, everybody does. So it's kind of it's super nice when that happens, but it's also kind of terrifying because it's like it's almost out of control, right?
Yes.
You know, it's this spiral towards what you ultimately want, but at a speed that you didn't expect.
And then, like you say, like you have somewhere to live. Now you have a club, and then before you know it, you're packing and like, Jesus, I have to be there in a week or two. And then you're kind of in a new place, and it's terrifying. But I hope for you as well. But for me, the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I still have absolutely no regrets. I think, you know, personally and uh, goalkeepingly,
Yeah.
in relation to my goalkeeping, you know, absolutely the best thing I've done. And I think that was, for me at least, that was always like, well, the worst that happens is that I go there, I play for like a year, and I get better just by playing, like, and having exposure to that level. And then I'm like, it's not really working out, or I'm not at this level, and then things don't work out, and I go back home or I go somewhere else, you know.
Mm.
Um, but it was, I mean, getting to turn up and then actually going, hey, I can do this, you know. And it was, I think the weirdest thing actually for me was turning up fresh out of New Zealand, having just, I had to bail mid-season,
Mm-hmm.
and then arriving and joining a team like completely out of the blue, and they were like, "Hey, you're really good. Do you want to stay? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep playing for us?" And I'm like, "Wait, like a Sweden team thinks I'm good, you know?" Like this was like in the social grades, but it was
Yeah.
like, wow, you know, that is not what I was expecting when I came here.
Right.
I was expecting to be like at the bottom, so to arrive and then have somebody be like, "Hey, we want to have you back," you know, and then find my feet and then and actually start playing competitively in Division 4, and then find that I wasn't, um, you know, I was never out of my depth. It was
Mm,
like,
yeah.
yeah, actually. So yeah, I mean, in conclusion, like no regrets in that, because it panned out way better than I ever could have hoped. So
Other
it's
than the virus, of course.
yeah, there's not how I pictured the end of my first season going. So moving on to your starting work with your SSL career. So, what was it like to start work with Yun Headland, who, by your arrival, like by the time of your arrival, he was already like a pretty well-established goalie. He'd been with Pixbo, and I think he played the national team a couple of times. By that point, and he's also like the age difference. He's older than you, isn't he?
He's 1 year
So,
younger.
oh, he's 1 year younger. Right.
1 year.
Okay.
Sarah's
So
older.
in terms of, right, okay, yeah. So well, we can include her in this then as well. So what was it like with when you started working with those two who were like already established? So kind of, you know, they were playing at the top of their game, and then they had somebody coming from Luleå to tell them how to play, or how to, you know, how to improve. Um, and yeah, both I guess in experience and also age-wise, was there any like hesitation on their part, or kind of taking time to get used to you, or how did that go?
So, in one word, terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. So the thing was, when I came to Pixbo, I was coaching the goalies in 4 youth teams, 2 women's and 2 men's.
Hmm.
I also helped out with something we call the Friday practice, when you help coach the kids
Right.
in goaltending. So I had 5 teams, so to speak, that I worked, with.
Yeah.
Uh, First year, obviously, you do it basically for free, and I did maybe like 10 practices and a few games every week.
Yeah.
And for some of those Friday practices, I would get to work with the kids alongside Sarah or June.
Right. Okay.
So we would meet there, and work together.
Hmm.
And then they kind of got to hear me coach. They kind of got to see what I was about.
Hmm.
We got to interact. It was good. I got to see their games. And first of all, I was always starstruck by them.
Mm.
And then when we started getting SSL players like to join the Friday practices, because they do activities for the club, such as
Right.
joining kids practices to shoot and teach.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a practice for the backup goalie of the women's team at the time, and then I
Yeah.
had 3 or 4 women's team players there, 2 of whom played in the national team.
Right.
And I was like, this is so crazy. Like I have 2 national team players here working with the highest the highest level of elite goalie.
Mm.
And it was just surreal. And then so it's a mix of me being super confident but also super starstruck and nervous,
Yeah.
because I told myself that I'm going to coach in the SSL,
Mm.
but I'm not going to apply. So I told myself that I'm not going to tell the teams or the goalies of the SSL teams that I want to work with them. I want them to come to me.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, you can look at that as cocky. Like, I'm going to wait for them to come to me, but that's not what my idea was. My idea was exactly as you say. Sarah was a national team goalie at the time, established. Jon had done a few tours with the national team, and he was a 6-year veteran of the SSL already then. I think 5 or 6. So it's like, for me and them to work as a coach and coachee relationship, they have to accept me, and the best way for me to know that they accept me is that they come to me. So that was kind of a way for me to ensure that we would work well together. Fortunately, at the end of the season, Jon sent me an email, and he was like, I would like you to be involved with my training next year.
Wow.
So and this is all, by the way, when I sent the first text to the woman in charge of Pixbo, that was in like February of 2015.
Yeah.
I was living already and coaching in Gothenburg by May or early June.
Yeah, right.
And then just a year just blows by, and all of a sudden here's him contacting me about this. And I was like, well, I lost my shit, obviously. So I go and join the men's SSL team. Super excited. I set up a meeting with him. And here's what I think I'm most proud of with how I handled going to the SSL. I made it super clear that I need you to know that I know that I've never been, and I will never be, a better goalie than you are. That's the first thing. So if I ever ask anything of you, I need you to know that I couldn't do those things myself.
Yeah.
So any types of comments such as, well, do it better yourself, I couldn't.
Yeah.
Despite that, I need you to trust that I will only ever say anything if I genuinely believe it to be helpful to you. So we kind of established that straight away. So if I ever said anything, it was never a case of me trying to tell them what to do. It was me trying to bounce ideas with them. And I also told him in the first meeting, please feel free to reject any of my ideas after you try them.
Yeah.
So if I have a suggestion that I genuinely think is going to help you, try it first. We give it a try. We see how it goes. We both conclude, or you conclude, that it doesn't work. I have no sense of pride in having you apply my feedback anyway. Then we scrap that idea, and I will come up with another one, as long as you try it first, because that's the best way for us to arrive at a good conclusion.
Yeah, for sure.
So I kind of established those things, and that took a lot of the edge off for me. And that said, Jon is a very imposing character. He has a kind of he just has a certain authority around him.
He does. Yeah.
And here's me, a first year SSL junior, so it was kind of still terrifying at the time, but just the fact that we had done that introduction worked really well.
Yeah.
So then I start working with him. I'm down there at the practice, sitting next to the goal of him or Oscar, the backup goalie. And I did a similar interview thing with him, our meeting with him as well.
Right.
And now here's where it gets crazier. So the women's team and the men's team always practice back to back, almost always. So Sarah would see me working with him or them. And they would see that, well, she knew me from the first season, and she would see that I was there every time. And I was only attending to the goalies. So she kind of figured something was up.
Right.
So one day I hit her up because I need to borrow a key to a thing. I go to her office, and so imagine you walk into this office. She's behind this desk. And again, this is for me kind of like I'm walking into her office because this is one of the best goalies in the world.
Yeah.
Even though she wasn't, well, she was working her normal job at the time. So I walk into her office. She's there behind the desk. She has the key on her end of the table.
Yeah.
I walk in. She doesn't, oh, hi, here you go. Here's your key. The reason you're here.
Yeah.
She kind of keeps it. So I figure, okay, I should sit down because she obviously wants to talk. I sit down and we chit chat for a while, and then I was like, look, I gotta get going. Because I didn't want to like say, hey, give me the key. I gotta just, can we stop this? But I was like, no, I really have to be off for the practice.
Yeah.
So she goes, okay, yeah, but before we go, I want to talk to you about this upcoming season. And she says, I want you to work with me this season as well. So all of a sudden, in the span of a couple of weeks, I go from, working with the academy to having Sarah and June asking me in person to work with them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what's going on? Like 1 year ago, I was working with juniors and I didn't even know who Potter Gorman was. And here I am coaching at, at his level.
Yeah. Man, that's mental.
So terrifying is the
Yeah.
summarizing word.
It's really interesting that you brought it up straight away with Ewan in particular about like I'm always trying to bring something up because I think it'll genuinely help you, and it's not because I think I'm better than you or I can do it better than you. It's just that I think it'll actually help you. And feel free to reject anything that I feedback after you've tried it. Because I like in my super limited coaching experience, I always find that that's the terrifying thing. Is like, I guess because I'm heavily a player myself and have occasionally, given feedback, is you always worry that the person on the receiving end is like, yeah, he thinks he's this elite goalie giving me tips. And you're like, no. Like, really, it's not. It's just that I have struggled with exactly what you're struggling with right now. So it's, and it's that fear of, you don't want to come across as a dick or being that, well, you could do it better like this, watch me, because that's not how you're doing it. So it's a really interesting take on it that you just kind of grabbed the bull by the horns and just went, hey, this is how it is. Like, I don't want you to get the wrong impression about it. So I'm telling you now that it's a really cool idea. So.
Yeah. And I think it was majorly a self-preservation thing. Just to make sure that we didn't somehow, just to give them the right expectations of me. And this is still true. The goalies that I work with, I still work with him, which is a blessing. This is going to be our 4th season working together, I think, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
And I'm working with Lara, obviously. And
yes,
it's the same thing, even though I will be really like headstrong on a certain topic like this, it's better if you do it this way.
Yeah.
It still doesn't mean that I can outperform any of them.
Yeah.
So actually, me and Lara have even had a few runs of competition where the backup goalie for the women's have been out and I've gotten to step in. And then it's like, regardless of whether it's 5-on-5 or 3-on-3, we compete in numbers of conceded goals, and I've yet to win once. And that's an important thing for me, that they know that I have no pride in being able to perform as a goalie, because that doesn't actually relate to my ability to help you.
Yeah.
Which is the main point.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I think as a goalie who would be on the receiving end of that, as kind of like to have somebody come in and be like, hey, just so you know, like, I'm not telling you this because I'm better than you. I'm telling you this because I think it'll help you. Like, I think it instantly blows any awkwardness out of the water, and in any kind of possible like, maybe not quite the right word, but like adversity, when you kind of a new guy on the block and you kind of sit there with arms crossed, like, all right, like, let's see him start his stuff. Like, what's your first advice, coach? Let's see how it goes.
Right. Yeah.
And then if the first thing the coach says is like, by the way, I know I'm never going to be on your level, and it's not why I'm telling you this. I'm actually here to make sure that you get help. Like, I'm genuinely here to help you improve. Then it's kind of it. Instantly the person unfolds their arms and is like, wow, in that case, no, let's actually hear your first advice, because now I'm interested, so it gets rid of that kind of that barrier of like, yeah, all right, let's see how good you are. So,
Yeah, I do think humility and transparency goes a long way, and
for sure.
that's my genuine hope is that whenever I worked with any of the any goalie that I've ever worked with, if it's a goalie camp or if it's in a club,
Mm.
I genuinely hope that the impression I've given is that I only care about like helping you improve and not trying to say that I could do it better than you. That's what I'm
Mm.
genuinely hoping, because I know that I couldn't, because I haven't been playing actively regularly for 12 years.
Yeah,
So, so
right.
yeah, I think that goes a long way, and I hope that's the
Mm.
image that I'm putting out.
Well, first-hand experience, I can definitely say that's the image that I got when we first met at the Blind Safe camp.
Awesome.
Especially because that camp, I had no idea who you were. I mean, to be honest, the only name that I knew was Patrick Orman,
Yeah.
and I knew him from the YouTube videos. So I was having a heart attack on the bus that he was going to be there.
Yeah.
But to me, you were an unknown, and then we left, and you were one of the people that I hit up. Like immediately, like, hey, can I ask you questions when I get home?
Mm.
Like, can I email you stuff?
Yeah.
And it was like, it was you were so approachable, and there was never any judgment that I was this crappy goalie from New Zealand, because I'd been playing for like 18 months by that point. So it was like, yeah, I know I'm going to be terrible, but here's this guy who doesn't care
Mm.
and is still willing to help me. So yeah, I think happy feedback. That is definitely the way that you're perceived, from my perspective at least. So.
Glad to hear it. That warms my heart.
So, speaking of coaching, when you first started with those guys, like probably more about the SSL goalies, what was the first kind of coaching steps you took? Like, what were, but especially because I guess they already had that level of, we know kind of what we're doing, we know how to play. So what was the approach that you took so that you could integrate with them, rather than just being like, okay, well, today we're going to do movement, and they're like, well, we've been playing for billions of years. So,
Right. So almost anything can be sorted out, through thorough and continuous communication.
mm,
So the first thing I did was to, in the same meeting where I said, don't expect me to perform as a goalie. That's not why I'm here.
mm,
Is also, what do you expect from me? What do you want from me?
right.
How can I help you according to you? Because that was another point of eventual conflict that could have happened. Like
Yeah,
me
right.
trying to teach them or impose something on them that was not of their interest or in
Yeah.
their goal setting. So I was
Mm,
like, first of all, and this is something I work a lot with today as well. What is your goal for your career, your entire career?
mm,
And then what's your goal for this season? What do you want to achieve? And what are the steps we need to work on to get you there?
yeah.
And then me being of the school of Varberg, which isn't really a school of goaltending, but it was looked at as such back then,
Mm,
because they were the first ones to do goalie camp,
right.
and they were blockers. So they would, instead of reacting to shots, they would block shots,
Mm,
which made them really really solid at close distance.
yeah.
So Jon, for example, said, I want some of that blocking mindset that you have. I need you to work with me on that and get me better doing that.
Right.
So I was like, all right. So that was my starting point for him. And then I obviously did full game video analysis already the first season.
Right. Right.
Kind of what I did was, and still do, is that I look at the entire game. I look at conceded goals, and I look at saves, and I look at situations where there's no save or goal. The ball doesn't necessarily have to be involved.
Mm,
I categorize them and then I bring them up. It's like, this is something I think we should look at or could benefit from.
yeah.
Do you agree, yes or no? And then that's where we would get the kind of points to work on from.
Mm,
And I also asked them, how do you want me to act in a game?
right.
So because all of this is supposed to be on their terms. Like, I've always tried to view it as, I'm working for you.
Mm,
I always try to put myself below the athlete. I am a
mm,
servant of, or an assistant to the athlete.
right.
So my ego or my wish to do things don't necessarily matter.
Mm,
Sometimes they do. Athletes can be really strong-headed too.
yeah.
Like, no, I want to do it this way. Yeah, but I also have proof on video that doesn't work.
Right. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
really should do this. But unless you get the athlete on board with what you're thinking,
Yeah.
it has no bearing how right you are.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So I asked him, well, both of them, in a game, what do you want me to do? Do you want to come to the bench and talk to me when you give up a goal? How do you need me to act in the intermission?
Hmm.
What type of feedback do you need? And how do you want to do it after the games and stuff? And
Hmm.
they kind of laid it down for me and said, well, Sarah, you don't talk to her before a game.
Yeah.
So then that's an easy box to tick. Like, all right, don't talk to her.
Yeah.
If I'm on the bench and there's a goal, she will come to the bench, but it can be enough for her to just express her feelings and then go back.
Yeah.
So just don't give too much. Think about this little detail kind of thing.
Hmm.
Or she would ask, how did the ball go in? I said, the ball went in under your arm on your first post because you were too late there. All right, that's all I need.
Yeah.
Jon doesn't even come to the bench. He has his water ball behind the boards. So we
Yeah.
never talk during a period. I only talk with him in intermission. And he said, if you have feedback for me in the intermission, make it snappy. Make it 1 minute, 2.
Yeah.
A couple of short points. So then I make sure that I do that. I have a couple of 2-3 concise points and say, this, good, think about this. They always do this. Be mindful of this tactic that they use.
Yeah.
And then drop it. So let him get back to his thing.
Hmm.
Whereas Lara is more like, you can just sit and talk to her.
Hmm.
So I kind of mapped the territory.
Yeah.
This is how they want me to work with them, and worked with them from that. And that's the way I try to work today as well.
Nice. That's super cool. Actually, it's really interesting to hear about. Especially working with such different styles must be kind of a little difficult to balance sometimes. But it's kind of cool to that you're able to hit so specifically and help them out. So.
And I think I think you have to as a goalie coach, because, like you said, they are different and they are individuals, and they're not a group of people who play the same way. I've never had a set of goalies that work the same. And when I say work the same, I mean mentally and practically.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear about actually working with like just working in such different styles. It's kind of it's really cool. So looking to move to some more training-y questions. So I don't know how much you deal explicitly with this as a goalie coach, but you probably have a good idea of how your goalies do it. Can you give us a vague idea, like an overview of like a general weekly training schedule of an SSL goalie? So various types of off-court trainings, like hitting the gym and doing fitness, or hitting the gym and doing strength, team trainings. Are they getting on-court trainings with you, or like just for them, sort of thing, like just for the goalies? Just an overview of like a weekly schedule would be cool.
Yeah, an overview is pretty precise. That's pretty much as exact as I can give. But so the men's team, the previous seasons have played 32 or 34 games or something, which means that they play 1 to 2 games every week. The women's play most of the time it's 1 a week, because they 1 a week because they play 26 games. Weirdly, and that means that the men's team have a lot of prehab practices or rehab sessions,
Right.
or recovery sessions. So play on Sunday, and then you have a recovery session on Monday. So for every recovery session, I try to do a workout with a backup goalie, and kind of left the first goalie alone. If anything, they would get mobility exercises, stretching, that they felt that they needed. We arrived at those together, of course. And then, so Jon in this case was kind of left to his own devices the day after a game. And then I worked out pretty hard with the backup goalie, because obviously he's not in need of recovery the day after sitting on the bench.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's one thing that, that could happen on a Monday, for example. The women's team, I would try to do the same if it was one of those days where they had played a weekend game as well, or a Sunday game.
Right.
If I have been really efficient, then that practice will also include me just quickly going over with them the game, if I have had time to do the analysis. And even if we don't have time to do that on the Monday or early on in the week, they get, so the men's team or June gets 2 video analysis sent to him every week.
Yeah.
And sometimes we discuss them on the field. Sometimes I send them to him and he replies in an email and says, I agree with this, I don't agree with this. This I think we should take with us and stuff. And then we kind of just clear it up when we see each other. So to summarize.
Yeah.
So it's that type of correspondence for both of them, Lara and June. Either we do it all, I bring the laptop and we look at it together, or it's just the email correspondence.
Yeah.
And as far as goalie specific training during a season, there's not a lot of that going on for the first goalie, actually. And this has to do with the fact that you only have so many training sessions and you have no time before or after.
Right.
So June, for example, working as a psychologist.
Psychologist.
Yeah, a psychologist. He works almost full days, and he rushes from work to, get into the arena 10 minutes before practice. If they have the early practice at 5.
Yeah.
If the men's team doesn't have the early practice and they start at 6:30, then I'm busy from 5 to 6:30 with the women's team anyway. So we have no time before or after, because if they have the late session, with him either having to catch a ride with the others from the practice or taking the bus, there's not a lot of, you don't really want to stay for 30-40 minutes after 8 o'clock to do video analysis and then shower and then get on the bus and then get up and work. So that's tricky. So the most goalie training actually happens with the backup goalie. But then if you look at it the other way, almost all of the video analysis happens with the first goalie.
Right.
So they get to 2 different sides mostly. But then, especially the women's team were good at coordinating with me and like saying, on Thursday, we're only going to use half the court for the first half of the practice. It's yours. Whereas with the men's team, it was more when we get to the place, like, oh, by the way, you have 20 minutes with the goalies. And I'm like, oh, okay, right. And I picked them up. So that's pretty much it. It's video analysis 2 to 3 times every week for me, 2 for the men's, 1 for the women's, either through email or in the hall. It's a goalie workout session for the backup goalie every week, 1 to 2 of those. And then whenever I get the time from the head coaches, when it's like power play on one end or something of that matter. And also sometimes when we do physical training, and this is something that we've mainly done with the men's, the goalies get to do the power portion of the workout with me. So meaning instead of doing explosive sprints, they actually come to me with the gear on and we do explosive related drills on our knees, goalie specific. So I also get some physical training in with them every now and then, which is really nice.
That's really cool. So segueing along with that, what muscle groups do you particularly aim for when you're doing exercises? So you mentioned explosive movements from your knees. What muscle groups are you targeting with that?
It's all about the hips.
Right.
It's pretty much all about the hips. Obviously, your legs work a lot in the movement, but the hips is where you have to be, I believe, the most flexible and the strongest. Because they are what's going to wear out. The knees, obviously, but you can't really work out your knees as such. You can strengthen the ligaments around the knees and stuff, but the hips for sure. So that can be, so imagine you're sitting in a basic stance and on a signal from me or anyone, you just do one push as hard as you can in one direction, and then you stop completely, and then you get another signal, and then you push as hard as you can. So you're kind of working explosiveness that way.
Right.
It can be sitting in a basic stance and then on signal, jumping up on 2 feet and then jumping with 2 feet as high as you can, straight up, attempting to catch a ball up there.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be explosiveness in the sense of sitting in your basic stance, and then I drop a ball in front of you, and you have to jump out from the stance and, as like a cat, and grab a rebound.
Yeah.
So these types of exercises is what we mainly do for. Do you call it explosiveness?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, yeah. So for explosiveness, that's what we
Yeah.
try to do.
That's really interesting, actually. I found that in my experience, being at the opposite end of the spectrum, like I was playing for a long time before doing any strength work, and I think you saw this in a game of mine not too long ago, a few months ago, where I was sinking down quite a lot, and that was because I had no strength in my hips, so I'd get tired and get used to just sitting down, and I'd slink down, and kind of relax into that, because it's like, I relax my hips. And then as soon as I went and started doing that strength training in my hips and legs in particular, and getting my core, actually learning how to engage my core properly, and then that was the clincher of like, hey, I actually can stay up here now. It's so doing doing the hip strength in particular was like, right, yeah, okay, this is actually like, it's not just a habit, it's like a habit because of this, and this is going to help with that. So it was a cool little tie-in. But it was so relating to the same point, but from the opposite end of the spectrum of I had no strength there, and then started to get the strength, and came out at the same target, and was like,
and we have pretty much a similar build, you and me.
Yeah, that's true.
Similar frame, and this is the problem that I have when I go into the net now. I don't have the strength in my hip to hold myself up in movements or in dives or just in my stance, and I have bad hips already. It's not just my knees, and I notice so clearly that I can't keep myself up. So it's the lower end of your core and your hip, but then also like just your main trunk, your main core. It's not only a what's it called? It's not only a cliche that you say goalies have to have a strong core. That's actually true.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
you have to have a really solid core and work out those muscles that you can't really see, but definitely hips in combination with it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so possibly more specifically, here's a challenge question to
Interesting.
Yes, hopefully bamboozle you. So a lot of things that I see on Instagram, at least from kind of everybody, like they do hand-eye coordination stuff, they do hey, look, you can do this goalie exercise, etc., etc. But they're always like, they make certain expectations that a goalie has access to X or Y, like, so goalie exercises, they have access to their kit and somewhere to slide, or hand-eye coordination, they have access to somewhere to bounce a ball, for an example. But if you live in an apartment, say, which a lot of people do, that this somehow escapes notice, that like a lot of people just don't have access to be like, I'm just going to throw a ball against the wall without driving the rest of the building nuts. So what are some exercises that a goalie can do at home, either hand-eye coordination or just goalie related, that they can do kind of if they didn't have access to somewhere where they can slide or wear all their gear and do stuff and dive, or they can't make a lot of noise because they live super close or in an adjoined building or apartment or whatever?
So the first thing is something that I worked with a lot with my goalies in Pixbo, and it's just mastering the squat sit.
Right.
So just squatting down and sitting on your sitting down in a squat with your heels glued to the ground,
right,
and then trying to lift your torso up. So this is going to challenge your mobility in your ankles, in your hip,
Mm.
in your thorax, your torso.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important that you try to increase your mobility in that sense, because if you imagine you're in a big goalie basic stance,
Yeah.
you will have the so-called back of the foot, you know what I mean, down to the floor.
Oh, yeah.
The upper side of your foot will be down to the floor.
Yeah.
And if you do that right now, you push the upper side of your foot down to the ground, you'll feel a stretch on your the front of your leg, your shin.
Yeah.
So your feet are mostly, stretching that way.
Mm-hmm.
But you actually want to get it by compressing yourself in the other direction. So sitting down in a squat.
Yeah, for sure.
That's gonna be super important for your mobility in the net. And that's the first basic thing that I think that you can work on so easily to such a great benefit. And we actually, me and a yoga teacher, kind of animal flow yoga instructor that we hired, gave Yoon this as homework to every day, when you're watching the news at night, sit down on the floor in a squat rather than on the couch.
Right.
Because that will help you in many different ways.
Yeah.
Then, if you want to do really helpful goalie things without making noise, get a yoga mat and just go onto YouTube and try to find some yoga programs on there, because they really are excellent. As far as hand-eye coordination goes, there's a lot of things you could do. First of all, I wish I had it here, but it's a type of a ball, but it's made of foam. And it bounces really, it bounces a lot, but it makes no sound. It's like cutting out a piece of your bed mattress and dropping it, and it just goes. It doesn't make. You can throw it against the wall, and the person on the other side of the wall in the same apartment wouldn't be able to hear you.
Yeah, right.
You just get the right types of of ball. And then there's this thing that I've been wanting to get that I haven't. It's you attach it. It's like a headband that you tie around your forehead, and then it has a string, an elastic string with a ball on the end of it. And you kind of like throw the ball away from you. It comes back at you at your face, and you box. So it's like a boxing tool. You box the ball away from your face to do hand-eye coordination, which is super cool.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
I really want to get that one. I don't even know what to Google to find it. But it's like a boxing ball that you attach to your face. It's really weird.
Yeah, for sure.
If we want to talk simplicity, those are the ones that I would go to. Just do, and it's a really boring answer because it's answers that anyone can come up with. Do yoga, do these, but the basic things are where progress really lies.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you think that you don't need to get better in any way, shape, or form in sense of your like regular mobility, being able to sit in a squat or the yoga movements, then I would wager that you're wrong. There's always areas in the fundamental movements and mobility that you can improve, and they will help you. And hand-eye coordination, just because I like catching stuff. I enjoy just having a ball in my right hand and juggling with one ball. I throw it from my right hand to my left.
Yeah.
And track it with my hand, or throw it harder that way. Throw it across from your left hand to your right and follow it up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never did a lot of work at home, but these are some of the basic things that I can recommend.
Yeah.
If you have a chance, look up animal flow on YouTube. That's really cool too.
Yes.
And I have also been lately of the attitude that we need to get better at just the normal push-up. Lie down on the ground and do push-ups, because in a game of floorball, you will at some point have to plant both of your hands on the ground and push off.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you work on that? And when you get good at push-ups to the point where you're on your feet and you can do a couple of them, you actually work the core really well as well.
That's true. Being able to do a push-up in like a perfectly flat position is actually is crazy difficult on your core.
It is. So my advice, me and Joel talked a lot about this. A lot of the exercises that you see on Instagram is like, it's flashy and it's like, check out this awesome thing that you can do.
Yeah.
But it's like, as long as you just stick to the basics, the best things aren't flashy.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you can always pick up juggling if you want to. But here's the thing I want to say about juggling. First of all, if you want to make it soundless, you can just sit on your bed or your couch so that when you drop them onto your bed or such. But just the act of juggling doesn't make you better at hand-eye coordination. It doesn't. It makes you better at juggling. You have to make juggling work for you. So, for example, if you write, this is Joel's advice, you write tiny numbers on the balls or something. And while you're juggling, you try to, fix your eyes to the balls and read the numbers. That could be one thing.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways you can do it, but I just want to put it out there that just the act of juggling doesn't improve your hand-eye coordination that much.
Yeah, for sure. I feel juggling is always it's a hand dexterity thing.
Right, exactly.
And not so much a hand-eye coordination thing. And especially because when, personally, I found when you're juggling 3 balls, you gave the example before of when you toss one from up in a lob to your other hand, and then you track it with your head the whole way, right? And that's really good for head tracking practice, which is awesome. And then as soon as you add 2 more balls and you start juggling properly, you don't head track it anymore. You look at every ball at the top, and that's where you make your eye contact, or you do it in your peripheral vision, depending on how you learn. Right. But you blow that head tracking out of the water. So it's not hand-eye coordination so much anymore as, it's a practiced movement. And that's what you're practicing by juggling. So I would even agree that you're tossing one ball to the other side is more beneficial. But juggling is also a good warm-up. I do like to do it pre-game to just warm up hands and movement and stuff. But I would agree it's not necessarily like a hand-eye coordination improvement skill or drill, I guess.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's just this whole thing where people have always said, you need to be able to juggle as a goalie.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Nope.
It's a nice complimentary and it's fun.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very relaxing once you know how to do it. But well, I think, to be honest, that is the vast bulk of everything I had to ask. We have drifted through quite nicely. So
sweet.
We have one thing for people listening last, unless you have anything else to move on to.
No.
All right. Well, so for the question for people listening in, we're going to talk about this briefly at the start of our next English podcast. And we want you to answer the question or ask questions about it or tell us your answers to it. And then we'll try and bring it up when we're talking about it at the start of the next podcast. We'll try and do this on a regular basis and then pick it up at the start of the next one. So this podcast, we're talking about routine, pre-game routines. So when do you start mentally preparing for the game? Is it, the same day, or is it the day before? Is it what do you do on the same day leading up to the game? What do you do when you're at the court? What's your routine once you're there? Do taking yourself off to the side and warming up? Do you juggle? Who knows? So tell us about your routines and we will tell you about ours. And that's it.
Yeah, fantastic. So what I think we will do to facilitate the questions and your comments is that we're going to put a post up on Instagram telling you that this next, basically repeating what Chris just said. So when you see that Instagram post about the next episode of Goalie Talk, feel free to put it under there.
Yeah, sweet.
And Chris, welcome aboard, and well done with being the hosty McHost face, as you so eloquently put it at that one time.
Yes, thank you very much. It is very nice to be here, and nervousness is thoroughly gone. I feel well settled now after that. It was a good chat. So
amazing. Really glad to have you on, and I hope you're all looking forward to hearing more from me and Chris as we talk our way through these Goalie Talk episodes, and then as we start having guests. So thanks for listening, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.